We knew it was coming. The signs were all there. We knew we had to change, but we didn't. Destroying wild habitats, exploiting wildlife, turning a blind eye. Maybe it would go away. It didn't. It began to bite back. Primates had HIV, civets had SARS, bats and Ebola. COVID-19 is not the first pandemic, and it won't be the last. Unless we deal with the root causes. It's time to stop the wildlife trade and to support compassionate, sustainable farming to protect our planet. Let's change our relationship with nature forever. For all life on Earth.
Hi, I'm Steve Gelster, the founder of Freeland. I'm here in Bangkok, Thailand, beaming in for the Freeland Film Festival panel on ending pandemics and its relation to wildlife trade. EndPandemics is a 33 organization alliance and growing. Our goal is our name, Ending Pandemics, by addressing the root causes, which we believe are the rising commercial trade in wild animals, destruction of wild habitat, oftentimes for converting to industrial agriculture and factory farming. So we're trying to address all three of these things through what we call a One Health policy approach, protecting wild animals, people, and ecosystems all at the same time. If we don't do that, we're just going to go through this again. Investing billions of dollars in a vaccine that we stick in our arm, that vaccine's not going to work against the next viral strain. And these stimulus and recovery packages, it's a lot of money that we're going to have to spend again, so they really amount to expensive Band-Aids. So we really do need to pay attention to protection of wildlife, not just for the sake of nature, but to protect ourselves as well. This panel has been set up to address some of those points. Moderating the panel today will be Andrei Kushlin, former World Bank official and UN Food and Agriculture Organization official. Andrei has a great history and experience in dealing with wildlife protection and trade issues. He's beaming in to us from Moscow, and he will be moderating the panel today. And I now turn it over to Andrei's capable hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. In fact, I have not yet made it back home, and I'm beaming in now from the beautiful Baltic Sea coast in Latvia. I'm Andrei Kushlin, Senior Advisor with Transparent World, a geospatial solutions NGO based in Moscow. Since this March, we have been working closely with Freeland and other multiple partners to develop and launch EndPandemics.Earth, a global alliance and action campaign. Our goal is to reduce the risks of pandemics by addressing the root causes of zoonotic outbreaks. And we do so by crowdsourcing and promoting practical solutions that can be replicated across sectors, geographies, and scales. The 1-minute video that you just saw before Steve's opening remarks is our campaign ad, narrated by actress Jane Seymour. CNN International has been running it globally 4 times a day, every day since June. As Steve already mentioned, our campaign keeps growing, and it is never late to join. Our participants operate on 5 continents, and we represent a broad range of perspectives: conservation, agriculture, health, climate, business and finance, security, media, communications, education, other sectors. Now, let me use some visuals to walk you through what our campaign is doing, why you can help and how, and of course present the focus of today's event. Here we go. As you may remember, Stephen in his opening remarks mentioned the One Health approach. It is a risk-based approach to governance of health systems at the animal-human environment interfaces, with the animal part including both wild and domesticated animals. While this year launched this concept into global stardom, the approach actually existed in science since the 1960s. And even as a policy term, it predates the current pandemic. The World Bank published its operational framework on One Health in 2018. This is a very simple yet strong economic reason for it. The approach aims to stop contagion at its animal source, where the cost of outbreak control is by the orders of magnitude lower than when it spills over to human communities. Our EndPandemics.Earth campaign follows the science and the economics of the One Health approach, as it also targets the root causes of zoonotic outbreaks. However, our emphasis in pandemic risk reduction is not so much on pathogen surveillance and control at the human-animal interfaces, but rather making sure that we stop making such human-animal interfaces more pervasive and more explosive through our own short-sighted actions. Disruption and fragmentation of remaining wild habitats expands these interfaces. Wildlife trade, as well as irresponsible livestock practices, dangerously push these interfaces into our communities. Rural poverty makes these interfaces difficult to control. These challenges define the focus of our campaign. Our currency is in practical, replicable solutions that can effectively tackle these challenges and whose impacts we can monitor and measure. We collaborate with all kinds of organizations, big and small, formal and informal, to be able to track our solutions' impacts at various levels: communities, policies, business practices, and consumer behaviors. We have currently identified several action pillars for our solutions. First, reducing demand for wildlife. Second, protecting wildlife and natural habitats. Third, countering wildlife trafficking. Fourth, reducing zoonotic risks from industrial agriculture. And others can be added as we move forward. If you think I got crazy ramming all these slides through you, don't worry. This was just a preview of what you can find on our webpage. We use a globally distributed co-working platform to build and expand the campaign's solutions map. Such map helps scout for effective solutions, build up their application potential, make them more attractive for funding as part of the bigger picture in various action pillars, left to right, as well as track their impacts from top to bottom. Campaign participants submit these solutions through our online tools that help capture their respective results, impacts, and lessons learned for better replicability. Now let me take you back to our solutions map. In real life, support to various solutions tends to be random, or at best clustered around a few isolated popular themes. By proactively building our solutions ecosystem, we aim to facilitate a more systematic coverage across action pillars and impact levels, like this. This was about our overall strategy and tools. Today, we want to make you all help us move ahead in one of the traditionally more difficult action pillars, reducing demand for wildlife, and one of the more challenging impact levels, changing consumer behaviors. These challenges have been acknowledged and systematically included in some of the most ambitious global programs sponsored at highest political levels, such as the Global Tiger Recovery Program launched in 2010, or the Global Snow Leopard and Ecosystem Program launched in 2013. As their implementation proceeds with noticeable success in other areas, ability to affect consumer behaviors and reduce wildlife demand through these government-driven programs remains elusive. Coordinating body for these global programs have joined our alliance, and one of them, the Global Tiger Forum, will participate in today's panel discussion. The corporate world has long been using charismatic wild animals in their advertising, trying to influence consumer choices. Some of them even agreed to channel part of their revenues to wildlife conservation needs, such as Exxon with its Save the Tiger Fund. The fund, however, expired once the company's advertising strategy has changed. Save Your Logo campaign is another example of corporate programs involving the likes of Lacoste. Most recent developments include the Lion's Share Fund, initiated by UNDP, that facilitates companies using wild animals in their advertising pool a percentage of their proceeds to verifiable conservation efforts. But none of this is yet tapping into the mainstream business practices. In global entertainment industry, the Lion King franchise is the highest grossing property, with billions of dollars in annual revenues. Ironically, the world is still struggling to secure proper support for lion conservation, and its IUCN status is still vulnerable. This awkward disconnect was keeping me awake ever since I heard about it at a National Geographic event. I went on a quest looking for answers. I kept asking everyone I met, and I went very high, to no avail. Ultimately, I found someone exceptionally well qualified on the subject. This is how James Cameron, the famous Hollywood director, answered my question. People will keep throwing inordinate amounts of money at entertaining themselves, but the moment you invoke the guilt factor, their wallets close immediately. Indeed, we all know that blaming people does not trigger massive behavioral changes. Let's now turn to positive emotions. What you see is a typical image of tiger mania on a typical college football weekend in a tiger college. There are 76 such colleges in the United States that have tiger as their sports mascot. Everything their students and faculty constantly see around them, and many also care about because of the powerful college sports economy, is about tigers. Amazingly, when we first visited Clemson, one of the famous tiger universities, in 2012, we learned that merely 10% of their students had any awareness of the plight of real-life tigers in the wild. That realization triggered collaboration between Clemson University and the Global Tiger Initiative, championed by Robert Zoellick, president of the World Bank at that time. Clemson's president, James Clements, pushed the bar higher, leading to the formation of the Tigers United University Consortium that unites several US universities, aiming to turn this big tiger disconnect into a big opportunity for wild tigers. The same approach shall work for any wild mascot. Hence, our topic today is Rooting for Your Wild Mascot to End Pandemics. The panel will be followed by a live discussion on a narrower topic. How can college sports influence consumers to reduce demand for wildlife? That will help us advance the development of our campaign's Action Pillar 1, demand reduction, and at the same time, hopefully attract many universities to joining our alliance. And with this, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our main storyteller today, my fellow co-moderator and a very dear friend, Professor Brett Wright. Brett is Dean Emeritus of the College of Behavioral, Social and Health Sciences at Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. He previously served as Clemson's chair of the Department of Parks, Recreation and Tourism Management, and most importantly for us now, he is the founding director of the Tigers United University Consortium. So now he's going to explain us everything about what you are going to see next.
Good morning, I'm Brett Wright, and I'm coming to you from the upstate of South Carolina. This morning I'd like to share with you a story about Tigers United University Consortium. It's been a journey of sorts that involves several friends and fellow travelers on a mission to harness the passion of our students, our faculty, our alums, and our fans with the power of our science in an effort to save our mascot.
वो निकल गई सर मैदान में।
Oh my God.
To see one in the wild is something that is awe-inspiring. You're just not the same after you've seen one. The thing about the tiger is it's a healthier forest when the tiger is present, and it doesn't change the balance of nature. It's kind of the epitome of biodiversity, and if we lose it, what it's going to lose behind it?
Because there cannot be a balanced forest without a tiger. If the forest is not well balanced, the tigers won't be there.
I've seen so many tigers, hundreds of them in the wild, but every time I see one, it just gives me those same goosebumps, and the feeling is still the same. It is a teacher. If you observe tigers and if you're really passionate about knowing how it leads its life and how it moves, despite all the problems that we have, tiger is still surviving.
I love to hear the forest coming alive. Every animal is calling. It is not just that the animals are scared of it. I think they have so much respect and awe.
The status of wild tigers globally continues to remain in danger. A lot more needs to be done.
So the Global Tiger Forum, as an implementing of the Global Tiger Initiative Council on the Tiger Agenda, is owned and manned by the Tiger Range countries. And we are working with all the 13 Tiger Range countries and using a differentiated approach based on site-specific and country-specific measures. We are responsible for implementing the Global Tiger Recovery Program and the National Tiger Recovery Program.
Just trying to engage with these countries. We are trying to identify champions, and of course Clemson is a great collaborator with us.
Because if you save the tiger, you save other species, including our own.
Tiger conservation has direct relationship with the survival of human beings. For example, in India, as of now we are having 50 tiger reserves. From 50 tiger reserves, 350 rivers are originating.
It's about the rivers. It's about national parks being engines of economic growth. If you take out a tiger from a forest, people stop coming to that forest. The entire ecotourism collapses.
In all the land-grant universities, there are so many students from Asia which belong to these tiger range countries. These young students can be champions in their country, especially to reduce the demand for illegal wildlife trafficking and consumption of body parts within their countries. And I think the next generation can be the real leaders, and we really need new age tiger champions who can lead us into the phase where we actually eliminate the demand for tiger and wildlife body parts. Not only influence some political decisions, but also increase the kind of awareness that is needed in the civil society.
And the interesting thing that I found about working around tigers is the same problems that face tigers face the rhinoceros, face the elephant, the mountain gorilla, all in Africa. So the problems and the solutions to those problems, if we can save the tiger, can be used to save other animals as well.
In 2014, James P. Clements was sworn in as Clemson University's 15th president. Shortly after his inauguration, I had a chance to speak with him, and he asked me directly, he said, "Brett, what are you working on and what are you really passionate about?" This gave me an opportunity to talk to him about the plight of wild tigers. At the time of our conversation, he said two things that have always stuck with me. First, he says, "I think we have a moral obligation to help save this iconic species that's so central to our campus culture." And further, he went on to say, and he asked if it would be helpful if he were to call the presidents of other universities that have tigers as the mascot. At that point, my spirits soared, and the idea of Tigers United was born.
Clemson has an obligation to help. So last year I phoned the presidents of Auburn, LSU, and Missouri to ask them to join us in protecting these noble species. Our faculty and students have the expertise to help, and we agreed to establish a center of excellence in tiger conservation.
After several trips to tiger range countries of Asia, it became apparent to me that in order to save tigers, we need the help of a broad range of academic disciplines. We needed to involve many more people than the stereotypical majors of biology, wildlife management, and forestry. We needed to engage sociologists and anthropologists and people who study the behavior of people who live in close proximity to tigers. We need the help of engineers and scientists who can help us develop better local infrastructure and innovate new technologies that can assist us in monitoring the health of tigers through satellite technologies. And we need the help of business majors and economists to collaborate with conservation leaders on ways to improve the livelihoods of local citizens in ways that are sustainable and commensurate with the goals of conservation.
What the universities are doing, the 4 universities coming together, which has been convened by the president of Clemson and is given the right kind of leadership, as well as the provost, Bob Jones, under the dynamic leadership of Brett. I will never say it in front of him, but he is an exceptional guy. So he's brought together a very good consortium of universities, of 4 universities, Auburn, Louisiana, and Missouri, and Clemson. And I think yesterday's meeting kind of indicated a partnership in which everybody was willing to invest. It is very important. There are 100,000 students. 100,000 students, at least 10 to 15% belong to the tiger range countries, and they can actually determine a lot of public opinion. If a good social media campaign is started from their end, say if there is a Vietnamese student, that Vietnamese student can actually tweet or talk to people in Vietnam, or there is a Chinese student, or where the consumption of tiger parts is very high, where demand is high for tiger parts. I think they can play a role. But it's not just about tigers, it's about wildlife, it's about wilderness. And what Clemson is conveying, and I think Clemson will also, students will have to internalize it more, is the importance of saving the apex predator, which will save other, because if you save the tiger, you save other species. That has to be understood.
We need to engage people of all walks of life, from our youth to our seniors. If people were passionate about our universities, then we needed to raise their awareness about tiger conservation and solicit their support for our journey. After all, on any given Saturday in the fall, any one of our universities have more people in their stadiums than the memberships of most major conservation organizations. College sports teams and their love for their mascots offer an exciting new avenue to push ahead the goals of tiger conservation. In January of this year, during the National College Football Championship in New Orleans, we had a tremendous opportunity to tell our story to a national audience when our 2 teams met on the gridiron.
There is no animal on planet Earth like a tiger. All at once so intimidating, but so beautiful. That's why so many athletes at schools like LSU, Auburn, Missouri, and Clemson step into every arena with the pride that comes with calling themselves a tiger. But with every passing year, there are fewer tigers in the wild. Their global population has dipped to below 3,900. That's why those 4 schools have joined forces to create the Tigers United University Consortium, pooling their resources to help in the global effort to save their namesake animal, with a focus on conservation, education, and repopulation. They've decided that simply holding that tiger is not enough. If you're going to wear the stripes, then it's time to help save your own.
Our friends in Asia often describe the tiger as something mystical, possessing unbounded spirit, something larger than a single species. They often quote Chinese philosophy stating that without the breath of the tiger, there would be no wind, only clouds without rain.
If we understand what the tiger is in a very calm, serene, and dignified way conveying to us, that let us live in a secure environment and we'll enrich your life.
I'm very pleased to introduce our distinguished panel today. They represent just a sample of the dedicated people working on this cause. Our speakers have been asked to address 3 general questions. First, how is their professional area of inquiry connected to finding solutions for tiger conservation? Secondly, how would they translate that and those efforts into something meaningful for alumni and sports enthusiasts? And lastly, how can the pandemic wildlife connection help them make that message more clear to alumni and people around their universities? Our first panelist today is Ms. Vasavi Prakash. Vasavi has served with the Indian Forest Service since 2013, working on wildlife and forestry management.
She has a postgraduate diploma in geoinformatics from Twente University and a master's in forestry from Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy. She is currently a PhD candidate at Auburn University, where her research focuses on studying human tiger conflicts for informing landscape-scale conservation strategies. Our second panelist is Mr. Pramod Yadav. Pramod is a PhD candidate at Clemson University and has a master's degree in biodiversity and conservation from Gobind Singh Indraprastha University in New Delhi. Before coming to Clemson, Pramod worked for Traffic, a wildlife trade monitoring network hosted by the World Wildlife Federation in India. He has experience in diverse fields related to biodiversity conservation, wildlife trade assessment, environmental impact assessment, and climate change. Next is Mr. Monish Kapoor. Mr. Kapoor leads the development and execution of conservation initiatives at the Global Tiger Forum, which is the coordinating body for the Global Tiger Recovery Program. Under his leadership, the Global Tiger Forum has successfully built global partnerships with academic, research, government, and non-governmental agencies on wild tiger conservation across several areas in all 13 Tiger Range countries. Our next panelist is Dr. Leslie Lyons. Dr. Lyons is a feline geneticist and the Gilbert McLaurin Endowed Professor of Comparative Medicine in the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Missouri. She has developed DNA tests for feline polycystic kidney disease, one of the most common inherited diseases in humans. In addition to improving health for domestic cats, her findings could help conservationists implement breeding strategies in captivity for rare and endangered species of wild cats. Our final panelist today is Dr. Tim Businger of Auburn University. Dr. Businger earned a doctorate in veterinary medicine as well as a PhD, both from Purdue University. He served as provost and vice president for academic affairs at Auburn from 2011 to 2018. In this role, he was responsible for leading the academic programming for 12 colleges. Prior to that, he served as the dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine at Auburn for 16 years.
Hi, I'm Vasvi Prakash, currently a PhD student at Auburn University. Formerly, I was a divisional forest officer in the state of Uttar Pradesh, India, and my focus today is on habitat loss for tigers. The presence of viable populations of wild tiger is a stamp of quality which certifies the integrity, sustainability, and health of large ecosystems. In less than a century, Asia's largest predator, whose historical range stretched from Caspian Sea to the island of Bali in Indonesia, has been relegated to isolated population, residing in approximately 7% of the animal's original habitat. Tigers have a large territorial range and can dwell in a wide variety of habitats, including tropical forests, grasslands, conifer forests, taigras, rocky terrain, as long as the habitat provides cover, prey, and water. Habitat degradation, habitat loss, habitat fragmentation have been one of the major drivers of declining tiger numbers and habitat, other than poaching and illegal trade. My research focuses on human-tiger interactions in the Indian tiger landscape, focusing on human dimensions. Tiger habitat outside protected areas are vital for linking source populations but are extensively used by communities. I'm looking for a conservation model that promotes tiger permeability of such habitats while simultaneously securing the livelihoods of local communities and reducing conflicts. Managing conflict promptly and providing economic incentives will foster coexistence in these multiple-use forests and ensure the long-term futures of tigers in India. Long-term conservation of tigers will depend upon careful land use planning and zoning of large conservation landscapes to include areas for human use, core habitat, wildlife corridors, and buffer areas. Many of the remaining habitat fragments are either too small, isolated, or degraded to hold viable populations of tigers and their prey. Drivers of habitat degradation are not limited by political boundary, it can be transnational. For example, in Sumatra, palm oil and acacia plantation driven by world's demand are replacing some of the richest lowland rainforests on earth, which is a habitat of critically endangered Sumatran tigers. India has been a success story where the number of Bengal tigers have increased from 1411 in 2006 to 2967 in 2018 census. Sustained conservation efforts through political will have resulted in an increase in tiger numbers. Tigers have been a source of fascination for mankind since centuries and are embedded in cultural and media motifs all over the world. Obby, the tiger mascot, is a spirit leader and goodwill ambassador for Auburn University. He is the living spirit of Auburn. Mascots like Obby are the living role models for alumni and fans alike. And this is all about saving our beloved mascot for future generations. The current pandemic has demonstrated how our natural habitats with wildlife and ecosystems are entangled. Incessant elimination of wildlife habitats, poaching, and wildlife trade have enhanced zoonotic transmission. The whole world is grappling with this, and we must use the time to rebuild resilience to protect wildlife and wild places, including tigers. We need to understand that protecting tigers is essentially protecting ourselves. Do you want Obby as a cartoon mascot for the future while the living tigers go extinct? The chant, "Go Tigers," should be a concerted effort for succoring these enigmatic felines to burgeon into their lost glory.
Hi everyone and Namaste. My name is Pramod Yadav and I'm from India. Presently I'm pursuing a PhD at Clemson University under umbrella of Tigers United University Consortium, and my research will address various tiger conservation related issues in India. Before coming to Clemson, I was working at Traffic, WWF, and my assignment was to work on different illegal wildlife trade related issues. As we know, tigers are apex predators and presently their survival is threatened by human activities across the range countries in Asia. Habitat loss and illegal poaching for their body parts are major challenging threats for survival of the species, and presently only about 4,000 tigers remain in the wild. Tiger poaching and trafficking are mainly driven by demand for tiger body parts to use in traditional Asian medicine. Therefore, the species is at risk of being killed illegally to extinction for fulfilling demand from international markets. Due to lack of livelihood opportunities in rural area of tiger landscapes, local communities are also involved in tiger poaching and sending them to the international markets. Recently, Traffic has estimated that in last 19 years, more than 2,300 tigers were seized from across the world. And it is also believed that only 10% wildlife crimes are detected by enforcement agencies. There are also reports that recently Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia lost their tigers due to poaching, and now tigers are functionally extinct in those countries. Being members of Clemson family and having tigers as our mascot with the pride to move forward, it is our moral responsibility to play a role in protecting tigers in the wild. Additionally, when the world is debating about the role of wildlife consumption and their trade from wet markets, which we know have contributed to zoonotic diseases like the current pandemic COVID-19. The global health crisis originating from zoonotic transmission is not new. In fact, over the last 20 years, several deadly diseases have originated from either wild animals or wet markets. These wet markets exist across the world, particularly in China. They often contain wild species that are sold among other goods. Wet markets facilitate and heavily contribute to the practice of wildlife trade, and this practice has led to spread of zoonotic disease among the animals as well as customer at markets. There are a number of scientific studies that recommend banning sale of wildlife and their products at wet markets in order to prevent next pandemic. Then protecting tigers in the wild become more important through supporting local communities and research for tiger conservation to prevent next pandemic, because tigers provide an umbrella for protecting a whole range of wild species in their ecosystem as well as livelihood for local communities. Therefore, I am committed to inviting all our Clemson family members and alumni to join Tigers United University Consortium to protect tigers in the wild. Go Tigers!
Hi, I'm Monish Kapoor, currently the Head of Program and Partnerships at the Global Tiger Forum, which is the only international intergovernmental organization of its kind, owned and manned by tiger range countries. Over the years, we have firmed up several partnerships on conservation of wildlife, in particular the tigers. GTF's relationship with the Tigers University Consortium has been built upon a firm belief of taking that innate passion for university's tiger mascot, the tiger football team, roaring on the ground, and to help in resonating that message on conserving the wild tigers, their prey, and the habitat, which are crucial for sustaining ecosystem services for millions of people. Poaching, illegal wildlife trade, and trafficking are a major threat to our natural heritage, and it is influenced very much by the demand, which continues to be one of the major unaddressed pillars of the Global Tiger Recovery Program. While several efforts led by country leaders and conservation stewards as well as on-ground campaigns have focused on addressing this issue, it is relatively difficult to address given the human behavior angle attached to it. Whether it is due to a belief in certain medical systems that uses tiger body parts, or due to a feeling of aristocracy associated with a growing affluence, or simply an urge for something that is considered a rare commodity, or associated hunting practices. I firmly believe that the university alumni and sports fan as well as other citizens need to be the new age champions for reducing demand for tiger trade. The university consortium can play a major role in this, right from awareness building to the actual percolation of the message facilitated through students in these universities belonging to tiger range countries. Demand reduction requires integration of subject fields, as it is so closely driven by factors like buyer behavior, consumer preference, and further actioning upon it for leading the community towards its disuse of wildlife body parts and derivatives. And thus, it requires an ecologist, a human behavior specialist, a marketeer, corporate managers. Perhaps each and every person on this planet has its duty to understand what we are losing. This is where I believe the consortium, together with tiger range countries, can not only support the ongoing initiatives on demand reduction, but with such an integrated attachment to the mascot can actually stimulate a global revolution across all scales and levels to progressively move towards a society that firmly admonishes the use of tiger or wildlife body parts and products. Let them stay safe where they are in the beautiful wild. They do the most for us by being in their natural homes. Perhaps there has never been a more important time than this era of COVID-19 and so many diseases which are inherently linked to the disturbing natural, linked to disturbing the natural patterns of the ecosystem. If conservation efforts are targeted effectively, the global leadership and people across the world will definitely realize that without the centrality of the ecosystem in the economic policy, the gains would only be temporary and in fact more devastating in the long run if they continue to exploit nature in the way we are doing today. So let's protect the very fabric that makes our planet livable.
Howdy, I'm Leslie Lyons. I'm the Gilbreth McLaurin Endowed Professor for Comparative Medicine in the College of Veterinary Medicine here at the University of Missouri. In Missouri, we're known for our mules, but our hearts belong to tigers. And here's our most famous tiger, Truman. Truman, did you know that Mizzou has joined with LSU, Clemson, and South Carolina to form a program on tiger conservation? Yeah, the program's called the Tigers United University Program, and it's meant to develop a One Health program that will also help tiger conservation both in the wild and with our captive bred tigers all over the world. So Truman, as a professor here at MU, my job is to be a feline geneticist, and I try to find all the DNA mutations that affect the health of our domestic cats, including actually wild feelids too. We use this type of instrumentation, PCR machines and sequencing machines, to try to find those DNA mutations. In fact, here's one of them. This DNA mutation will actually cause a tiger to be white. So we can actually genetically type that mutation and then help the species survival plan for tigers so that they don't get too inbred and you stay very healthy. We try to study these same genes that are found in humans, which are about 21,000 or so, which help make humans healthy and also make them sick. The same ones make our domestic cats and our wild felids healthy and sick. Thus, this encompasses a One Health program, or translational medicine. And so that's what we're trying to do with Tigers United University of Missouri, is to do translational, genetic, and precision medicine. Veterinary schools, such as the one here at Missouri, work closely with zoological parks to help maintain the health of our captive felid populations around the world, including tiger populations like Truman. But cats are susceptible to coronavirus, but they have their own coronavirus. It's not the same as COVID-19, so it's a slightly different virus, but it's a very bad virus for cats. It causes something called feline infectious peritonitis. When the cats get FIP, it's nearly 100% lethal in domestic cats. So this is a type of zoonotic for cats, so it can jump from domestic cats into other wild felids, such as cheetahs. So the cheetahs are a good example where we have felids that we know have low genetic diversity and are highly inbred. And so when FIP, the coronavirus, jumped into the cheetah population, it was a captive population, we had nearly 60% mortality within those cats. So it nearly wiped out a whole population of cats. So that goes to show you that we need to understand these viruses and how they can actually change their own genetics, the genetics of the virus, which then causes it to jump from one species to another. So cats can help us understand coronavirus, particularly coronaviruses like COVID-19. For example, remdesivir, other nucleoside analogs, protease inhibitors, hydrochloroquines have all actually been tested in cats. And the nucleoside analogs have been shown to be very effective against feline FIP, nearly curing cats from something that was 100% lethal to nearly a 100% cure. So we need to use this information that we've used from other species to help us battle things like COVID-19. And that's the whole idea behind the One Health program, that we understand that since the genetics are the same between any mammal, whether it's cats or dogs or horses and humans, the information that we can learn from their biology and physiology, we can actually apply that to humans. And information we find from humans, we can apply back to cats as well. Help us help tigers so tigers can help you. Please support the Tigers United University program so we can bring One Health into the wild and then bring it back. MIZZOU! Go Tigers!
Good morning. I'm Tim Businger, Provost Emeritus at Auburn University. Prior to becoming an administrator, I worked as a veterinary pathologist for 30 years, and I dedicated most of my professional career to advancing animal and human health. My comments today will focus on how undergraduates can help us better understand the complex relationships that exist between domestic and wild animal populations, and of course humans. While discoveries that come from research will continue to be critical to our understanding of zoonotic and newly emerging diseases, the development of educational programming at all levels, from grade school to graduate school, that complements these discoveries is essential. In recent years, the One Health initiative has helped health professionals and students better understand the importance of relationships between animals and humans. These initiatives represent a broad commitment by the health sciences to work together on problems involving numerous species of animals, including wild tigers. While significant progress is being made to protect and preserve wild tiger populations, there is still much to be done, and it is incumbent on all of us in higher education to work together to involve students at all levels in finding creative solutions to these complex problems. As you know, these challenges are multifaceted and involve much more than just the health of a single tiger. In fact, areas of study of great interest to many undergraduates, such as wildlife conservation, landscape ecology, and the impact of increasing human populations, must be a part of the educational equation. As you know, our international programs have been severely disrupted by the pandemic. Until we can travel more freely, I recommend that we collaborate on the development of virtual study abroad programs that add value. These experiences can be transformational for undergraduate students. They should include research projects, data analysis, proposal writing, encouraging teamwork, and other learning tools to make this work more meaningful. If we enable students to earn college credit, we're telling them that we value this work. These programs should be highly integrated and should use technology to help students feel immersed in the world of wild tigers. Collaborating with professionals at the Kana Tiger Preserve, the Jim Corbett National Park, or other tiger preserves in virtual classrooms and laboratories would create a rich learning environment for our students. These virtual study abroad programs would complement the good work already being done by scientists and graduate students. I also think a short series of webinars on wild tigers and the work being done by our faculty and students with these animals would be of great interest to our alumni who see the tiger as a symbol of conservation. Given the considerable disruption that the pandemic is creating for college athletics, a series of thoughtfully prepared webinars on wild tigers might garner new interest by a broader audience. And finally, the challenges created by newly emerging diseases like COVID-19 are particularly worrisome because we don't fully understand the complexities of these diseases. This is the time to refocus our work on zoonotic pathogens and the challenges that they create for all species, including tigers. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate in your meeting.
Hi, I'm Haley Plumley. My family and I are huge Clemson fans, but more importantly, we are fans of wild tigers. We have joined Tigers United to help save the majestic animal that our mascot represents. Did you know there are more tigers in captivity in Texas than there are in the wild? That's crazy! There are as many tigers in the wild right now as there are freshmen at Clemson University. This isn't acceptable, and we want to change that. Soon, we will release a tiger conservation program for elementary and middle school. Our hope is to educate my generation about the dire need of our favorite mascot. We need you to join us in the fight. It is up to us to take action now if we want to save wild tigers. Text CU Tigers to 41444 to join us in the fight to save our tigers.
Hi, I'm Brett Wright. I'm the director of Tigers United University Consortium. I'm coming to you from the upstate of South Carolina. That previous clip was Haley Plumley, one of our young ambassadors from Orlando, Florida. Her father was a student athlete back in his day here at Clemson, and so she's literally coming to our football games since she was a baby. She's also inspired us with her love for tigers, and just inspired us to do an environmental education program that we call Team Up for Tigers. And Haley was the introduction of, provided the national introduction for that with that clip, and helped us to encourage young people her age to help us fight to save our mascot. So with that as a segue, let's transition to our theme for the morning's panel discussion. And that is, how can college sports influence consumers to reduce demand for wildlife? So I want to introduce and welcome all of our panelists and discussants, and as well as our online viewers, and invite you to make comments or ask questions through the online chat portion of the Zoom. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-host, Andre Kushland. Andre?
Thanks, Brett, and hello again, everyone, to our live session. I'm going to introduce a couple of our discussants first, who will give a synopsis of some of the relevant topics for our discussion theme. First, I'll invite Steve Galster, who you'll have already met. He's our host today. He's the CEO of Freeland, the organization active in a wide number of areas in Asia and in the US and internationally. And they are also the ones who own the film festival that we are running today. So Steve, could you, given your wide experience in various conservation topics, and including also the global demand reduction campaigns, can you give us your view briefly on what are the latest trends in wildlife demand reduction? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Andre. And we're really honored to be here with all the other guests and Tigers United, which we think is a great initiative. I've been based out in Asia for 20 years and working on wildlife trade issues for 30. And the thing about tigers, we have found, we've done surveys trying to protect them and why people are buying them, etc. And the convenient truth, there's two convenient truths here. One is that people are not buying tiger skins and bones and all that stuff because they're addicted to it and they really need it. It's largely a belief system, and it's for status. And if you look even deeper into the belief systems, a lot of the reasons that they're being marketed tiger bone amulets from claws or teeth, or buying skins, or getting tiger penis soup, or various things, is really clever, more modern day marketing. You don't find these things really in traditional Chinese medicine so much. You do find some stuff about tiger bone in there, but modern day marketing has really taken over here. So the good thing is, this isn't like drugs. People are not addicted to it. If you take it away from them, they're not going to be, killing or stealing money to go get it. That's the first thing. Second thing we have found, and this is not just with saving tigers, but any wild animals, is that probably the best demand reduction program is simply a top-down presidential, prime minister, congressional ban on commercial trade in wild animals, which then people see is translated into real action, that they realize that, okay, I really can't buy, sell, trade in endangered species like tigers anymore. If I do, I'll get in trouble. And clearly from the campaigns I'm seeing, not just from NGOs, but from my own government, this is a dirty trade, and it's hurting not just biodiversity, but it's causing zoonotic outbreaks. So we need to really be asking ourselves, the governments really need to be asking themselves, how can they be allowing a trade in commercial trade in wild animals to continue when any one of these animals can be carrying a pathogen across state boundaries or national boundaries for which we have no immune response, and create another viral explosion like we saw with COVID-19. And just to be clear, and this is what our campaign is calling for, to help protect tigers and to protect other species, this is not about banning subsistence hunting. This is not about banning duck hunting or deer hunting or taking food off of poor people's table. We're talking about banning commercial trade in wild animals. So the studies show that's really the most efficient way to catch up and to save this and other endangered species. And I think it's really important that we protect tigers, because tigers are, as we saw in the video, an apex predator, an umbrella species, keynote species, whatever you want to call it. It means that when you protect the tiger, you're protecting the whole habitat that it lives under and all the other species that that ecosystem governs. So if we really want to look for a vaccine to make sure we don't go through this kind of pandemic again, we want to really immunize our planet. Tigers are a great way. Tigers are essentially that needle we want to be sticking in our arm. It's a very important animal whose protection will carry much broader beneficial impacts to ecosystems and to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Now let me pass on the floor to our other discussant. Pei Su is the founder and CEO of ACT Asia. Since 1994, Pei has been dedicated to helping Asian cultures recognize that compassion towards humans and animals and respect for the environment enriches lives and communities. ACT Asia initiated education programs aimed at children, consumers, and professionals for gradual and sustainable social change. And Pei has received many awards internationally and within China. Pei, I'd like you to give a quick overview of what you believe are the emerging opportunities and priorities for wildlife demand reduction campaigns in Asia right now, including potentially by working with universities. Pei? You are mute. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be able to share my experience with everyone here. And it's great, I want to thank to Freeland Film Festival and Tigers United University Consortium for inviting me to give an Asian perspective on tiger conservation. At the moment, your amazing energy through the university and efforts can really be a great example to the young people of China and Asia. And we all know tiger is an enduring symbol of nature as it is finest, which is why it has been such a popular mascot for university for so long in the United States. But although there's been a global awareness of this need to protect tiger for decades, we feel a new adaptive approach involving multi-stakeholders is urgently needed. We must protect tiger in the wild by protecting their natural habitat and end wildlife trade. An increasing number of the tigers in captivity isn't conservation. I believe we need to do better across the whole globe. In Asia, most of tigers in captivity are intensely farmed for their meat and parts. They kept in ways compared to battery hens or pig farming. These tigers are made so big and hardly stand out. These farms are often become a cover for the trade in tigers caught in the wild. It is not possible to farm wild animals safely or humanely. We are all living with the evidence of that through COVID-19, which is why ACT Asia work closely with EndPandemics Alliance to end the commercial wildlife trade and reduce consumers' demand. China is the primary source of demand for tiger parts and derivatives, as there are multi-tiger trade routes from Southeast Asia and South Asia to China and Russia to China as well. To preserve tiger in the wild, we need a change in attitude and policies. We must tackle the root cause, and that's why we are educating the younger generation so they understand animals not resources for us. Instead, we're sharing the world with them. We are all interconnected. Everyone agrees it is critical to teach the younger generation, yet we never invest sufficiently in education, the only long-term solution for behavior change. Through the education program, we are changing perception and alter thinking among primary school children and university students in China. We believe we must inspire the next generation so they learn empathy and compassion are valuable and necessary to protect nature and indeed ourselves, so they can decide to stop consuming wild animal products and end wildlife trade. Through Tigers United University Consortium support and students' individual effort, we believe we can protect tigers and wildlife in our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Pei. That was very good. And we look now to welcome our panelists this morning. Let me remind everyone that our first two panelists, Vasavi and Pramod, are coming to us from Auburn University and Clemson University, respectively. They'll be followed by Munish Kapoor, our friend and our primary liaison with the Global Tiger Forum in New Delhi. And then they'll be followed by Dr. Leslie Lyons, who's a professor of comparative medicine within the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. And finally, Dr. Tim Businger, the Provost Emeritus at Auburn University, and he is coming to us from the plains of Auburn, Alabama. So let me start off by asking Vasavi if she would start our discussion.
Thank you, Brett. I'm so excited to be here. Greetings to everybody. Belonging to a tiger family right from where I was born in India to where I am right now at Auburn, I believe that the Tigers have done a lot for us. And now it's our responsibility and our duty to do something for them. To answer the question, how can college sports fan reduce the demand for wildlife? I believe I will answer this question in a short way, just one aspect because the time is limited, and that is social media. We as consumers of social media see a lot of pictures and videos online of big cats, especially tigers, being circulated, which we make it go viral. I believe there are these unaccredited facilities which are not only hurting these animals, but are also a hazard for human health and safety. So as consumers, I believe that the illegal or the unaccredited facilities cater to the demands driven by the social media. And if we choose to disengage, we can reduce this demand. And in the end, I would like to say that we always on the field say Tigers for the win, but off the field, we need to get a win for the Tigers. What do you say, Pramod?
Thank you, Vasri. So yeah, I also believe that it's a high time to educate our community about tiger conservation, and specifically in the region where people are involved in tiger trade for consumption or other activities like entertainment and leisures, including tiger cub mating. And for that, we have to assess attitude and perception of those community or people who are practicing it. And afterwards, we have to explore how their behavior can be changed. And here at Clemson University, Park Solution Lab is working to understand in the United States how why people are petting tigers and how their behavior can be changed. And in that direction, we are working right now. And now being a part of Clemson family, I feel it's our responsibility also to educate students and other family members about tiger conservation and encourage them how they can make a difference in tiger conservation in the wild, as well as ending different problem associated with tigers here in the United States. Yeah. So now that's my take, and now I request Monish to give his comments.
Hi everyone, and I'm really excited to be here, and the Global Tiger Forum and the Tigers University Consortium have been great partners throughout. So I would just like to comment on this, that the demand reduction is a behavioral aspect, as well as what Steve had mentioned. It's about habit and what sports bring, you know, whether it's the football teams playing on the ground, the intricate passion that we can see on the ground has to be diversified to several age groups, and it targets different strata, from political leaders to the citizenry. Everything is basically brought together by sports. So I think it's a great opportunity with the Tiger Universities Consortium, as well as if we find some cooperation between the teams that are playing in the US, as well as other sports that are happening around Asia, that how that model can be enhanced in this way. Because ultimately it's not just one age group or one strata that we are targeting. It will have to be from children to adults, to practitioners, to biologists, to decision makers and policy makers. So I think it's a great initiative. And if we use sports and the messaging around football, for example, to conserve our mascot and this amazing animal, I think we can really hit the nail where it should go. So thank you. I would now like to bring in Leslie. Leslie?
Yes, thank you, Manish. It's really great that we have this opportunity to meet with our consortium and people interested in tigers today. And I really like to relate our tiger program to things that I do every day. So I'm a geneticist and a researcher, and I work every day with zoos and also with cat breeders. And we have to realize that as the tiger populations in the zoos and also in the wild, as their corridors for migration get cut off, these cats become pretty much like a breed program for any cat or dog that we see all over the world. So I like to envision them the same way, that we can use genetics and science to help with their healthcare program. And just like there's cat and dog breeds that we prefer don't exist anymore, we would hope that we could try to get rid of some of these private, non-accredited establishments. However, we need to build trust and a good, strong relationship, because our overall concern first is the health and care of these tigers, and to make sure that they're in a proper environment for the rest of their lives. So I'm hoping today we are starting the last generation of tigers that are abused in captivity, and really that we can all work together to slowly eradicate the cats in these private establishments through good science and cooperation and understanding. And now to you, Dr. Bosinger.
Thank you. Universities are an incredible resource, maybe underestimated sometimes. These 4 universities have a particular passion for the tiger as its mascot. It's important to know that these 4 universities frequently refer to themselves as families: the Auburn family, the Clemson family, the LSU family, the Missouri family. And there is that kind of spirit where we're committed to taking care of each other. And there is a commitment to taking care of the tiger mascot and the tiger in the wildlife. What we need to do is continue to build on that enthusiasm and promote it, and work with our administration and our athletic departments. The other thing I wanted to point out, when we think about universities, we always think about the students. Well, our 4 universities altogether have over 100,000 students. Sometimes we forget that these institutions have over 1 million or 2 actively engaged alumni. And they're all over the country. They're all over the world, willing to represent their institution with enthusiasm. So I think we need to work together to leverage that family commitment to solving this problem and moving forward, and hopefully do anything we can to prevent another pandemic like we're currently dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now we have a little bit of time to pick up on some of the questions we are receiving. We have received some questions already before the start of the session, and we are getting some now. First, there is a few people have quite urgently reacted to remarks by Leslie in her earlier segment. I think people heard you say about the white tiger, and they are curious for you to clarify that you are not referring to it as a separate species, and that as such they do not have any conservation values. Can you just quickly comment on this so that we are all clear? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Yes, I understand the controversy about whether they're a subspecies or whether they should be used as part of conservation programs. More, as I have mentioned, I'm interested in the health of these animals. And so now that we have a genetic mutation that we know what causes a white tiger, on the one hand, okay, yeah, we could just say, okay, now we can test all these cats and eradicate any cats with this mutation. Or we could take the other point of view where we actually say, well, now let's use that, because we can't immediately stop
people from breeding the cats. We hope to slow that down. But if we can at least use those genetics to breed healthier cats and to get them less inbred, that's all I'm saying about that type of mutation, is that we can now use that to produce white tigers when we want to, that are very, very healthy, or actually to use that information to not produce white tigers as well.
Since we are on the subject, there is another related question. I believe you have already partially answered that, but just again to clarify the overall position. The question goes like this. Given the use by some US schools of live tigers as mascots, what is the consortium's position on the matter of rampant, largely untracked private ownership, captive breeding, and trade in the United States? Again, I think, Leslie, you could clarify that. Thank you.
Again, the number one thing that we want to make sure is all these cats have good health care and are in proper environment and proper husbandry. So there are a few establishments that have captive tigers as their mascot. And we see now and more that the live mascots aren't brought onto the football field anymore or brought out and exposed greatly to the public. So that has changed over time. But we have to realize these cats also are have wonderful facilities and actually the best health care they could possibly have. So we do want to separate that from different establishments that don't have proper health care for the felids. And we really want to promote that we try to reduce the number of cats that are in captivity that don't have proper health and health care and are being exploited for who they are.
Thanks, Leslie. I have another question. It goes like this. College football is a very American sport and probably has little traction in Asia. What are the chances that the consortium sports mascot message will get heard in China, other Asian countries that drive wildlife demand? Here, I'll probably ask two of our panelists to say a few words. Pei from China and Monish from India. Maybe Pei first, very briefly. Thank you. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
As I explained in my briefly remarks earlier, I believe education is really important, and I also pointed out the amazing energy and efforts have been putting through the university and consortiums is a great example for the young people and university in China and other Asia country. And I think if we can utilize this example and pass on the, magnify the effort has been made and to demonstrate, and I do think this way we have a great result. And then through this effort to really teach young people there, tigers and animals are not just resources. So we can continue to bring in the more progressive messages. So when they are become the decision maker of the future, generation, they would not continue to consume these products.
Thanks, Pei. And now, Manish, maybe a few words from the South Asia perspective. Obviously, tigers are mascots, not just with football, but basketball and the baseball, and these are popular sports. Please, Manish.
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, football, even though it's an American sport, but it's how we build the message across it. Since its inception, the Tiger University Consortium and the communication team around it has been working really hard to actually give us such footage, such video, the messaging and everything else, which is now being run across the Tiger Range countries through the forum. So it's how the partnerships are more effectively built to take the message across the globe. Similarly, as I was reading a comment where they were talking about Japan has other sports. India, of course, has a popular sport as cricket. So using such partnerships where, some teams or some college teams here in India could actually have some cross sports events and working around the tigers and other species also. So as you rightly said, tiger remains an excellent mascot, and with this kind of cooperation and the communication, the positioning and branding of such sports event is also important. And this is where I would really congratulate the Tiger University Consortium, where it is actually giving a model to the globe to learn that how to bring that mascot into perspective and wildlife conservation.
Thank you, Monish. I think we have time for just one more question, and I have one. How successful are the consortium universities in bridging the disconnect between the tiger madness of a college football night and the traditionally low student awareness of the wild tigers' fight for survival? What does it take to persuade your college, your school's athletic department to start putting your tiger infomercials on the stadium screens? And I'll ask Tim, as a really a top official in a Tiger University, to maybe say a few words about this. Thank you. Tim?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's important for everyone to know that the presidents of the 4 universities have been very supportive from the beginning. And we have worked with athletics, but we need to continue to work with athletics. And I think what a strategy that would be helpful would be for our alumni to speak up with a stronger voice, asking for athletics to help raise the level of awareness. I think it's been said multiple times this morning that we have a problem within our university of making sure everybody's aware, not just the students, but I don't think all of our alumni are aware of some of the challenges. So I think working in those ways, I think we can move this forward, and we'll just have to keep at it constantly. Thank you.
Thank you, team. So now I would like to close the Q&A session and pass on the word back to Brett to say a few words about kind of, what are the take-home messages from this conversation today, and what we should be looking forward to.
Well, thank you, Andre, and thank you to all our panelists from all over the world. It's been terrific to be with you all this morning, and we're very pleased to do so. Obviously, we've heard about One Health, and it makes sense that human health is dependent on how we treat our wildlife, how we treat our Earth's resources. Without one, you're not going to have the other. Leslie made that point very, very clear. And I think we've broken our covenant with nature. I mean, and we need to get that back. So what we do to educate people about conservation goes much broader into terms of conservation education and many, many other things about disciplines across all of our campuses. We in the U.S. have a tremendous opportunity, I think, to have a largely underdeveloped base or an alumni base. As Tim said, we have hundreds of thousands of alums around the world. We have fans, in any given Saturday, we have over 300,000 fans in our 4 university stadia, with every one of those people with a predisposition to love the Tigers. They're wearing Tigers, they've got pins on, they've got everything that's Tiger, and we need to capitalize on that passion. And we can do it in a couple of ways. We can do it in terms of trying to harvest that loyalty of our alumni and our fans to raise awareness. We can use it in ways to get our students, particularly our international students that are from all over the Tiger Range countries, to convey through social media and other ways that what we need to do to lessen the demand for wildlife from a consumer standpoint, and to protect and promote sustainable populations of this exotic animal that we care so dearly about. And then finally, to harness the power of the university science from all across every discipline in our universities, from engineering to wildlife to social and behavioral sciences. There's room for everyone to focus on these problems, and the power that we have within our university's faculty and students, and that passion, if we can harness it, we can really move forward to try to protect this iconic species. So with that, let me turn back to Steve. I'll toss the football to you, Steve, and let you make some of our final.
Thank you, Brett, and thanks everybody. So I just want to emphasize a couple of things. First, we got to hurry. You know, the tiger's actually coming back a little bit, but we're talking about, you know, a species that went from over 100,000 down to 3,000 plus in a century, and the habitat's shrinking, poaching's going on. So I'm so glad we're having this panel. I hope it also results in some action and collaboration among all of us. We have to remember that, you know, the science that the universities are promoting, which is so important, can, if we do it right, it can support security and policy change. All that data and analysis on what's going on with the tiger and all the other species, their habitat, that can be used to like wake up leaders and say, hey, we really got to protect this species. In fact, you got to protect all of these species. It's not just a matter of protecting animals anymore. Look what just happened with COVID-19. We got to protect people through wildlife protection also. We got to remember the front line. There's rangers out there. I just saw some a couple days ago, 3 hours drive from here up to a tiger park. These are people making sometimes 75, maybe tops $300 a month, putting their lives on the line to stop poaching of these and other animals. And they need our support too. They're the finger in the dike while we get our act together globally. So let's remember the rangers. You know, they need mosquito nets, they need boots, they need food when they go on patrol and stuff. We got to remember them. And at the end of the day, we also have to just really wake up our world leaders that, you know, there's no more time for compromise. And the tiger is a very good, convenient species for us to focus on because there is no legal commercial trade in tigers allowed anywhere in the world. Okay, that's the way it should be for all wild animals, but we can get behind the tiger, and the tiger can be the vanguard, really, with our support for all of nature and all wild animals. So I really want to thank Andre, especially for pulling this together today, and Brett for you pulling everybody together, a massive feat, bringing all these universities together, and really appreciate everybody's participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.